Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 5 of season 2 of The Legend of Korra, called The Peacekeepers. Now this is a kind of what I was been waiting for this season. This episode is really about the politics of the situation, and it's definitely much more meaty on the characterization. And I know the Mako Korra shippers are probably freaking out and tearing out their hair and posting God only knows what on Tumblr. I don't think I want to know. Tumblr frightens me at times. But yeah, this is some good stuff. So let's get right into it. And what I really like about this, and it basically kind of at the core of this, is kind of the question of balance. Now, of course, balance is what the Avatar is supposed to be all about. But we have to remember that it's not always just about keeping balance between the four elements of the world. What we saw originally when it was Aang's time was that's what was happening. The Fire Nation had caused the world to be out of balance. Now, what we're looking at is the internal balance of the elements. The Water Tribe, as a whole, is out of balance. You know, we've got the Southerners versus the Northerners. But we're also looking at balance with what's going on with our other characters. You know, the balance in Korra and Mako's relationship, and even Milu's desire to have fun with his pet Poki, and his desire to train Poki to be an obedient lemur. And well, we see what happens more about when things get out of balance. You know, at first, Milu. Let's just start with Milu, since we can kind of get his little storyline out of the way first. We see Milu, of course, at first is way too permissive, and then when Tenzin tries to intervene, he goes the opposite direction and is too controlling. And Tenzin ultimately says, "You know what? Just go have fun with your lemur." But again, here it's a very cute and childish embodiment of what is the real problem: is that going to extremes. Wait, doesn't that sound familiar? But anyway, that a balanced approach is really what Milu needs in order to be successful. You know, he doesn't need to tame every lemur within 20 miles. He just needs to try and teach Poki a little bit of, well, basically what you would expect out of a pet owner to teach their pet. And here we see that the leaders of the Water Tribe, they cannot find that balance, and that has caused all kinds of chaos. Korra cannot politically find that balance, and it's causing all kinds of problems. Korra and Mako cannot find a proper balance in their relationship, and that just, bam, blows up in both their faces. And even Bolin can't really find a place for himself. He doesn't really have a place in this new situation, and it's causing him to really just sort of bounce around. At first he's just completely submissive to Eshka, that he tries to run away from his problems, and now he's really sort of a little bit latched on to Varric. Bolin is not a guy who, for an earthbender, is surprisingly kind of just going with the flow. He is not a guy who is forging his own path. But we'll talk a little bit more about Bolin in a second. Right now, I really want to talk about what's going on with the political situation in Korra. And what I really like here is that Mako is actually giving Korra extremely good advice. One of the things that she criticized him for not doing earlier. Now, when we saw him in the earlier episodes, he was basically saying, "I'm out of my element here, but I'm your boyfriend, I love you and I trust you, I'm going to support your decisions." And generally speaking, that was the right thing to do in that situation. But now Mako's in a situation where he understands the things a little bit better. He understands the politics of Republic City. He's grown up there. He understands what's going on in the police force. And he understands that Korra is letting her emotions kind of blind her. He does have that police training, that logical mind to see things as they are, and to not let his own prejudices get in the way. I mean, Gil Grissom would get a real kick out of, would very much like this take on Mako that we're seeing here. Man, how much CSI have I watched over the years? Oh yeah, a lot. Anyway, of course, Korra, Korra you can't really count logical thinking among Korra's virtues. She's somebody who is very much led by her passions, who's led by her heart, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. But there Korra is out of balance. She tends to use her heart a lot less often than she does her head. And of course, this is one of the things that sort of gets her into conflict with Tenzin. And really, this is just continues to highlight how important balance is in the world. We have to find the balance between our minds and our hearts. We have to find a balance between what our own desires and the desires of those of us who are around us, the people we care about, the people we love. And this episode wonderfully illustrates that, and it also wonderfully illustrates one of the classic staples of good storytelling, of good characterization. And that is that characters are not all about one thing. If you write characters who are all about one thing, they are boring and stupid and just not interesting. And let me explain what I mean here. Alright, so Korra and Mako are boyfriend and girlfriend. They obviously care about each other. They've been through a lot together. They love each other. But their love for each other is not the only thing that is important in their lives. For Korra, the Southern Water Tribe is very important to her. Her duty as the Avatar is very important to her. And with Mako, look, he's got his new job is very important to him. The oath that he has taken as an officer of the law is very important to him. And what you do in good storytelling to create characters who are interesting and dynamic, and to create situations that are interesting and dynamic, is to take these things that characters care about and put them in conflict with each other. J. Michael Straczynski, who I've probably mentioned in these reviews before, is a fellow best known for creating the science fiction show Babylon 5. And if you've not seen it, it's a sci-fi show from the 90s that's very, very good. Very good sci-fi stuff. And one quote of his that I've always taken to heart since I heard it was that the best stories are really not about a conflict between a great good and a great evil. The best stories are a conflict between two great goods. Well, here we see this highlighted perfectly. Both Korra and Mako are very good people. They are heroes. They are people who are out there trying to do right in the world in their own way to the best of their abilities. But they are people who, as we said, they are in a romantic relationship. Or at least they were at the start of this episode. But here, they come into serious conflict. Korra does not feel that Mako is supporting her the way he should, the way he had been just recently. And here, Mako is thinking that Korra is basically asking something of him, to lie, to violate these oaths that he has taken for her own reasons. And that Korra is doing so while she's trying to do the right thing. She's not thinking. She is, in fact, going out and making the situation worse. She's not even really willing to consider that anybody but the Northern Water Tribe might be behind this, even though someone whose word and ideas she should trust is telling her this. Korra is blind to this situation. She's blinded by her own passions. Korra would make an absolutely terrible Jedi. I'm sorry, I bought a bunch of Star Wars books off of Kindle today, so I've kind of got the Force and lightsabers and on my brain, and I was playing Star Wars: The Old Republic right before this review, so I kind of might have Star Wars on the brain at the moment. So yeah, but Star Wars is awesome, so I think you'll forgive me, because Star Wars is awesome. Please, J.J. Abrams, do not screw up the new Star Wars movies. Oh wait, J.J. Abrams is probably not going to watch this review. You're not my friend anymore, J.J. Abrams. You didn't watch my review. Okay, so getting back to Korra and all this other stuff. Now, what I'm saying here, it actually also applies to Lin, which it's kind of cool that we finally get to see her. I was happy to see her again. Now, she pretty much just blows Mako off when he comes to tell her. Now, granted, she's in a meeting with the president and she's getting chewed out for it. So this is really not a good time for her to be interrupted. But the thing is, though, and when she gets on, she yells at Mako for just being some rookie. Well, here's the thing, and Lin's being kind of dumb here. Mako isn't just some schmuck officer on the street. This is a guy who was actually able to hold his own against Amon for a little while. The guy that even Lin couldn't take down. he is somebody who has a very strong relationship with the Avatar. It is not unreasonable, and he's also a very skilled cop. It is not unreasonable that he really could have come up with something that was important. And now, granted, this situation, this meeting with the president, okay, probably maybe not the best time, but on the other hand, the president was there demanding that Lin do something. So here's somebody who Lin really reasonably should be in a position to think, hey, maybe he really did find something important. Tell me what you got, kid. And she kicks him out of his office. Out of her office. Yeah, probably not the best decision. And you have to think, if Mako had said, hey, here's the guy I saw with the explosive device at the site of the explosion, I have a feeling that Lin probably would have taken that more seriously than the two dumbass desk jockeys that were, hazing Mako. Boy. Oh, and hey, speaking of that whole bombing thing, maybe I kind of missed it. Who was that statue of? Okay, that was clearly some dude holding a hammer. So I'm kind of blanking here. That's not the statue of Zuko, which we know is actually supposed to be out in front of Republic City's version of Grand Central Terminal. And it's not called Grand Central Station, that's a misnomer. Grand Central Terminal is the proper name of that place in New York, because it is the end of the line and not a station. Yeah, remember, I'm a teacher in real life, so it's my job to be a stickler about stuff like this. Yeah, anyway. So, let's see. Let's kind of get back to Korra. Speaking about out of balance, one of the things that Korra continues and goes on and on about in this episode is, how this is screwing up my family and all this other stuff. Hey, Korra, would have kind of been nice if you'd spared a thought to Katara, who's also down there, kind of caught up in the middle of things, and is basically sort of a surrogate grandmother to you. But, even old, I'm sure Katara can more than take care of herself. But anyway, Korra ultimately ends up in a actual full-on battle with her own cousins. Now, granted, Korra doesn't have a terribly high opinion of them, and she just basically kind of thinks they're sort of creepy. And, of course, she also has pretty good reason to be angry at their father. But also, Korra doesn't really bat an eye at, going after her own cousins. Now, granted, they attacked her first, so, not really... She has there's really no reason for her to not, kind of fight back with them. But still, Korra doesn't even make the attempt to talk to them or to rationalize with them. She doesn't say one word to them. So, while Korra's basically being a little bit selective about, her family. You really, Korra, you should just say your parents, because they're the only members of your family that you really do seem to care about. Now, granted, her cousins are not exactly pulling any punches either, but still, if Korra really values family so much, why not at least try to rationalize with them? Now, of course, it's usually not the wisest thing to do to try to rationalize with people when they're trying to kill you. So I'm not going to come down on Korra too awful hard on this. But I'm just pointing out that even before this conflict arose, Korra was extremely dismissive of her cousins. She really just didn't care about them at all. So to see her here, kind of waving the banner of family in the face of that, well, let's be honest here. We all probably have, that creepy cousin or those creepy cousins. Believe you me, the story I could tell you about some of my cousins. But even though I kind of want to punch them sometimes, they're still members of my family. And if somebody was giving them grief, I'd be upset about that. So, again, I kind of have to question just if Korra has really fully thought out what she's been saying about family here. But anyway, kind of continuing on with this, what's interesting here is that did anybody get sort of a weird vibe out of Varric in this episode? It's made very obvious that it's probably not the Northern Water Tribe who was behind that bombing. So that kind of raises the question of who benefits. And take note of the little speech that Varric makes in this episode, that if you can't make money during a war, you can't make money. Well, Varric sure does like his money, and as a big-time businessman, he's in a position to make some serious profit if he plays his cards right. And Varric seems pretty darn good at playing his cards right. And if that does turn out to be the case, well, that presents another interesting contradiction. If Unalaq really is doing all of this because he's misguided, and Varric is really doing all of this just because he's greedy, well, that certainly puts a spin on what's going on with the Water Tribe. A good person doing bad things for a good reason, and a bad person doing what seems to be good for a bad reason. Life is complicated, and Korra still hasn't quite figured that out, or at least she doesn't appreciate that as well as she should. Just her desire to, against Mako's very good advice, to take a political stand in this situation, well, that doesn't work out very well. So, another thing to keep an eye on. Now, nothing to really say about Asami, although you have to kind of think that after what happened last season, is becoming basically an arms dealer really the wisest choice that you could make? I mean, granted, her company is in danger of going under, but, well, nobody likes an arms dealer except the people who are fighting the war. Hell, you know what I mean. Now, Bolin. Okay, finally, I'm really happy with what they did with Bolin, because he's, like I said, he's really just been drifting, going with the flow, really just been reduced to just comic relief, and no real heart to his character, no real meat, no juice to what's going on with him. And here we see a little bit of that. Now, I don't really think that Bolin has a great future in store with him as an actor, but one thing that interview showed is that he knows how to work a crowd. So, acting might not be in his future, but I could actually see him as being a pretty good commentator. And this is actually something that is not uncommon. Many professional athletes, after their day in the sun has passed, have gone on to sit in the announcer's booth and talk about it because, hey, they're already experts on this game. They already have a lot of fans. And most of them already know how to, work a crowd. I mean, that's often just part of being a professional athlete. I mean, look at professional wrestling. How many guys who are sitting behind the mic at those things are guys who used to be in the ring, like Jerry Lawler. And you know what? That actually would be a thing that Bolin is pretty good at, because after everything that's going on, I don't think anybody's really going to have that much time to really go out and give a rat's about pro bending. There's a lot more important stuff going on out there, and frankly, I think Korra's kind of progressed beyond what she could learn about bending from pro bending. That aspect of the show, I think, has really kind of had its day in the sun, and it's time to move on. Let me see here. I'm just kind of looking at my notes here, and I think that kind of covers everything that I have to say. Again, there's a lot of really good stuff going on here in terms of characterization, in terms of politics, in terms of the clash between characters, in terms of the advancement of characters, and oh yeah, the stuff with the spirit at the end. Well, that was just a last minute twist. Who knows what's going to go on there? But yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. So anyway, guys, good episode as always. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. And until next time, take care and have a good one.